Hello, coming to you again from Jakarta, Indonesia. It's morning time, and I thought I'd make another blog post. Today I wanted to talk about kind of the skills and competencies you need to be an effective EdTech teacher. I was at a conference this past weekend and we were talking about educational technology coaches or instructional coaches or digital literacy coaches, whatever you want to call them. And we were talking about what are the skills and competencies they need in order to be effective, and how do you determine that as you're doing your recruitment and your retainment procedures. And as we were discussing it, this conversation kind of evolved into what do we want them to be pushing in our teachers. And we realized that there's a combination of the pedagogic support that EdTech coaches provide to teachers and a set of skills and competencies that teachers need to kind of bring themselves. And what this does is it coalesces into kind of a set of skills, competencies, ability levels, understandings, passions, attitudes that we find in the most effective EdTech teachers. So what I want to talk about is kind of my take on that. Now let me start this by saying that this is my take. This is kind of what I have seen with my practice within the field, and it should not be your only source of your own personal practice as a teacher or practices that you're using to develop your own faculties. I would highly recommend that you look at a lot of the resources that are available. And if you go out there, you'll see that UNESCO has an excellent set of teaching competencies, I believe they call them. Ed.D has some excellent standards that you can apply to a number of places, be it students or teachers or coaches. And taking those on a whole is a very strong tool for you to use in building your programs. I think even iNACOL has a set of standards that are valuable to you. So as you're listening to this, what I would suggest you do is go out on the web and search for educational technology standards for teachers and visit those sites that I already mentioned earlier, because they really are going to be of huge value to you. Print them out, put them on the wall, have discussions with your teachers about this is the direction that we're going. But anyway, let me talk about some of the things that I see are needed within teachers in order to be effective educational technology lead learners as they were within the classroom. Number one, first and foremost, is they have to be adept in pedagogy. They have to understand what it means for a student to learn, what that looks like, and how do you deliver that. So you notice I didn't say they had to be device specific, they had to understand about technologies or even have a passion for technology at all. No, what I find is that the best technology integrators are ones that understand that learning comes first. And they understand what that means within the context of their classroom. So they understand how to take a particular content area or a project and make sure that a student is learning within that project. And right now it's really interesting because as we talk more with teachers, this is going even further. If you go out to EdTech conferences or you talk to EdTech people, what you're going to find is one of the most common topics of discussion right now is personalization of learning. And what that speaks to is that our devices and our services and our software, whatever it is providing the opportunity to have the best experience for learning within an individual student. Now there's a big gap there between the technology and the learning for the student, and this is where an adept teacher comes in, because they understand how to make those connections. They understand what that student experience should be, and then can backtrack and say, okay, these are the technology items I'm going to use to make sure that that student can reach that level, or to have that experience and have the individualized experience beyond what we're normally creating. Now, does that mean that if you're not a pedagogic expert that you are not going to be a good technology teacher? No, not at all. But it is a great place to start, to find a mentor teacher, to start reading up on learning theory, to experiment within your classroom, to really look at what students experience when they're learning, so that as you're planning out your programs, you can connect back with technology to fill the gaps that you're seeing. So you might look and say, well, within some of our content learning, we're just not able to accomplish X. Maybe technology can do that. And that's where the strong teachers go. What they do is they see holes, they see potential, and then they use technology to grow their learning and to fill those holes. And what ends up happening is that they start developing an understanding of the connection between the technology and the learning, and then everything just blossoms from there. It's really quite an amazing experience. Second, I would probably also talk about assessment. So the pedagogy is central. It's the number one thing that I find in great EdTech teachers. But after that is an understanding of what authentic assessment is within the digital age. So no matter where I go in the world, assessment is such a huge topic, and it's really regimented. So whether it's through the Common Core in the US or the IB or various other curricula that I see around the world, we're using standardized assessments tied to content areas as our assessment of learning. And yet within the EdTech realm, we realize that that level of assessment, that level of measuring student understanding is insufficient. And so good EdTech teachers can find this balance. They understand that they have to meet the needs of the standardized assessments and the assessments for learning that tie into evaluation of a school, but there are so many other opportunities for assessment, for authentic assessment for learning within an EdTech classroom. So they understand that there are formative possibilities, there are summative possibilities, and best is that there are personalized assessment opportunities that come from real directed feedback from themselves as teachers, from students on their own, or from peers. And it's with these connections of actionable feedback through valuable assessments that provide the most value for students, because it is connected directly to them. So they use the tools at hand through technology to provide students understanding about the content that they're doing, about the processes that they're following, about helping them develop a self-awareness, a cognitive awareness that they can then take whatever skills they're building and transfer it to other people, other situations, to other contexts, and really draw things together. That comes through a very strong understanding or a strong focus on assessment. Then we start getting into the technology. So do you need to be a technology expert in order to be an EdTech, to be successful in EdTech in schools? And I say the answer is no, but you have to have the mindset of creativity. You have to have a passion for trying new things in an applied fashion. What I mean by that is that the teachers that I speak to that do the best with EdTech are not Google experts. They may be Google certified, they might be Microsoft Innovative experts, they might even be Apple Distinguished Educators. But what has brought them to that space is a passion for using technology for purpose. And I talk about purpose in some of my other work. What I mean is they don't see the technology as another layer of work. They see it as an enhancement of what they can do. So they explore, they try new things, they speak to other people, they go investigate a particular technology and always have in the back of their mind, how do I use this for my particular context? How do I use it for my classroom? They are not experts. I don't go to these teachers and say, hey, can you reconfigure my Google Docs account? Or, can you show me how to do this one particular thing? Are your students all experts? No. What they can do is that they can use the resources around them to use this technology for learning. So I've gone into classrooms where the EdTech teacher is doing a great job and they don't know how to do a few things within the technology. They go online to solve their problems, they ask the students to help them out, but they have this game plan. And the technology becomes a central part of it. So it really is a passion for learning that's enhanced by technology. And then number 4 really is that passion. So there is a passion for technology. It doesn't need to be a skill set per se, but a passion for it. A passion for realizing that technology is here to help, and technology is one of these catalysts that we just haven't seen in education for hundreds of years. Technology can help us do things that you just couldn't do otherwise. Seeing that, and when you walk into a classroom, when you talk to a teacher, you can see the excitement on their face of, I can do so much more with an iPad. I can do so much more with my projector. I can do so much more with probeware or a particular software package or online services, or the collaboration that's done through our learning management system allows me to do so much more. And that passion is visible. It's almost tactile when you walk into somebody's classroom and they're doing these great things. That passion has to drive what you're doing. And it's funny because I put it down the list because it takes all the other ones to get to that passion. So you have to have an understanding of pedagogy. You have to have this feel for assessment. You have to have this this desire, not necessarily passion, but this desire to use technology for purpose before you can generate this passion or you can grow this passion for, oh my gosh, there's great things that can happen. The next piece is that, kind of in line with the mindset that EdTech teachers, the really high quality ones, are always evolving. They're always experimenting. They're always doing something new. They're always looking out there for the next set. And in order to do that, they're part of a greater community. So you will rarely find, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen one, you'll rarely find a quality EdTech person who's not connected in some way. Who's not part of a personal learning network, who's not sharing some of the things that they're doing, or they have a set of blogs or people on Twitter that they follow, or really they're superstars for their particular field that they can always draw upon. The superstars associate with other superstars. The budding superstars know where to go, or they start asking questions. You cannot be passive within this field and expect success. You have to grab it. The technology is moving so fast, the learning is changing so fast, the context in which students are going to be working seems to be changing by the day. And these people know that the only way that they can stay abreast of that is to connect with other people. And it's so interesting when you see these EdTech people together that are working with such passion, because it just grows their passion even more. It's almost overwhelming as they talk about a particular technology, or they talk about a specific project they're doing, or some pedagogy. They just move each other up. They just build the levels going the whole time because they have this really strong network. The last piece that I would say is critical for EdTech success is the desire to make others better. So, I talked about this need for sharing and collaborating and being part of a network, but there's more than that. There are very few EdTech people that find success who don't want to see it in other people. It really is a positive and optimistic and almost philanthropic approach to learning, where we want not only for our own students to do well and for our own teaching to grow, but we want to see it in the broader context. We want to share what we're doing because we see opportunities in other places. And you end up seeing these EdTech people they'll talk about themselves and they'll talk about all the great things they're doing, but then they'll mention, this particular person at the school over here is actually doing this. So if you get a chance, go talk to them because they're doing great things. And I helped this teacher over here, and now look at the wonderful things that they're doing. And again, similar to the passion about technology and about growing learning, there's a passion for helping other people. And so those things are common elements that I see within EdTech teaching. Now I haven't got into technology competency. I haven't gotten into the modeling of digital citizenship. There's a number of the standards that are really there. But a few things these kind of 6 things that I talked about are the ones that I see pretty consistent in our EdTech classes, or our successful EdTech classes. So in the schools that I'm working with now, in fact, the school I'm working in right now, we're developing an instructional technology program for next year. And what we've done is we've created a job description that outlines some of these broad scope things. I want them to be in the classroom working with students and co-teaching with teachers so that the student is at the center of that learning. I want them to drive professional learning and professional development in the area of tech-infused learning for the campus. So I want them to be a beacon or a lighthouse on campus. And then I want them to be strategic. So those are elements of my coaches that are going to be a requirement. But when they're here and we're talking, the things that we're going to focus on are developing pedagogic understanding in teachers, having a real discussion of what authentic assessment looks like in our classes, looking for those avenues of using technology to improve learning, so having a deep understanding of what's going on in the classroom, sparking passion, so emulating passion, sparking it within our teaching staff, that's going to be critical. We're going to talk about creating collaborative networks further than we're doing ever before. We have an opportunity to connect with people around the world, around the region. Our EdTech coaches are going to help teachers push that forward. And then lastly, we're all in this to make everything better. So whether it's within our school, whether it's in a faculty, or even outside of the school, our goal is going to be to make everybody better. And that's going to be our approach. If we can do that, on top of kind of the standards that are out there, we're going to find a lot of success, because that's what I've seen elsewhere. That's what I see when I go to conferences. That's what I see when I talk to other people. So if you're an emerging EdTech teacher, or if you're an emerging coach, what I'd suggest is kind of hit those things, engage in those networks, ask questions, and see if those 6 elements kind of push you where you're going. See if they tie in with the standards, and if you can do even more there. And then just continue to do great things. I'd love to talk more about these things. I'd love to hear great examples of wonderful practice. I know the U.S. Department of Education Office of EdTech is doing something along these lines of looking for exemplars within the United States. I'd love to hear about exemplars around the world. What are those great lighthouse schools or lighthouse classrooms, lighthouse projects, lighthouse teachers? They make all of us better when we know where they are. And there's a number of them that we already do know, but please share them. Get in contact with me, contact others. Let me know where the good things are, and I'll promote them as best I can, and I can learn from them and share with them some of the great things we're doing. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.